Alright guys, so let's talk about BRICS today. Ever since the bloc expanded in January, we have been seeing more countries keen to join. Now what's important is the location of these nations. Applying to BRICS implicitly means you want to build stronger relations with China. And as we all know, China is America's biggest rival. So joining the bloc is both an economic decision and a geopolitical statement. Asia is making a big pivot to BRICS, and the latest country to apply is Malaysia. Their Prime Minister Anwar has decided to join BRICS. He also called President Xi of China an outstanding leader. This is a big wake-up call to the Western world. Asia is making economic decisions in their best interests. Together with Thailand, Malaysia might be the second Southeast Asian country to join. Like the Thais, Malaysia is part of ASEAN. Malaysia is the fourth biggest economy of the group with a GDP of well over $400 billion. But what's interesting is Malaysia's strong stance against the US dollar. We know countries around the world they're trying to de-dollarize their reserves. The recent seizure of Russia's reserves was just outright outrageous, and even the US is trying to gaslight the world about it.
There is no sense at all in which it's theft. The Russian assets remain in this institution. They've been impounded. The investments that Russia had have matured, so Russia's funds are sitting in cash, but they're generating income for the institution, which Russia has no claim on. So there's no legal issue here.
Now, confiscation is one clear danger of the dollar system, but for Malaysia, it's more about defending their currency. The Malaysian ringgit has been under enormous pressure. Since power started hiking rates, the currency has been collapsing against the dollar. It is down by at least 10%, which is causing imports to get more expensive. And this is forcing Malaysia between the rock and hard place. Do I increase interest rates to fight inflation and damage economic growth? Or do I sell off dollar reserves to shore up the ringgit? Either way, you have a lose-lose situation. Malaysia joining BRICS is all about breaking away from dollar hegemony. BRICS allows Malaysia to enter an ecosystem that removes limitations imposed by the reserve currency.
But meanwhile, for example, with China, we have crossed the 20% of the total trade, which is quite a big volume for us, in local currency. Which means there is that possibility.
Yes.
Because otherwise, say our currency ringgit, doesn't make sense. Inflation is low,
Yeah.
growth is high, investment is huge. Last year was the highest ever recorded in the country, and still
Yeah.
the currency is being attacked. Okay, the last few weeks was much better, more comfortable, but you mean it does not make economic sense. It runs contrary to basic economic fundamentals.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the dominance of one currency, completely alien to the system and irrelevant in terms of economic activity, but purely because it is used as international currency. So I said, well, we cannot discount. There is still role for the dollar, but we can reduce substantially the impact on our economies if we use our own currency in the trade and hopefully can mature and forge a new understanding in terms of Asian financial system.
While Malaysia's energy self-sufficient, they still import a lot of raw materials or intermediate goods. Machinery, electronics and metals, all these are required to build their industrial base. And to accomplish this, Malaysia is going to work closer with China to de-dollarize. And this will be a nightmare for the US. In discussions with China, Anwar stated that 28% of trade and investments will be done using local currencies. As Malaysia uses fewer dollars for transactions, there's less pressure to acquire them as well. And this means if trade ever slows down with the US, Malaysia won't suddenly collapse. They can simply trade more with the BRICS countries, especially China. And China will do it. Beijing's big advantage is their enormous manufacturing capacity. It allows them to export deflation to the world and grab incredible market share. For 15 consecutive years, China is Malaysia's biggest trading partner. Beijing accounts for over 17% of their total trade, which is enormous. Imports alone were around $55 billion worth, or 21% of Malaysia's share. If that's the case, there's no point in paying dollars to buy stuff from China. Malaysia can simply use the yuan to import goods directly. A year back, Anwar expressed his dissatisfaction with the current world order. He discussed a plan with China to cut dollar dependence and the creation of an Asian monetary fund. Instead of raising interest rates to defend Malaysia's currency, Anwar wants to go the de-dollarization route, trade in alternative currencies instead of embarking on rate hikes that will ultimately hurt the country's economy. As an emerging market, Malaysia can't afford to hike rates aggressively just to save their currency. An alternative way, a better way, is to simply reduce your need to trade in dollars. Alternative currencies is one reason to join BRICS, but another big pull factor is investment from China. And Malaysia, like Thailand, is perfect to partner with Chinese industries. Tesla is already assembling and manufacturing cars in the country, and now China's Geely is also doubling down on building cars there as well. The company has committed $10 billion building their EV hub in Malaysia. For Anwar, it makes total sense. More jobs will be created and EV expertise will flow into the country. For Geely and China, it also makes sense. You want to spend your capital to build up Asian economies to replace Western demand. According to Geely's chairman, Malaysia's EV supply chain is 30% more expensive than China. The materials are imported in rather than sourced locally, so that is a problem. But with Chinese capital coming in, this number will start to drop down. To get around the Western tariffs and build up new markets, China has to turn to Southeast Asia. BYD is already making cars in Thailand, and their factory in Indonesia is expected to start operations by 2026, so Malaysia might be next in line. Malaysia entering BRICS is good news for the new financial system Russia and China are building. To understand this, we must realize that Malaysia is a big oil producer in Southeast Asia. In fact, they are one of China's top suppliers. Beijing is the world's biggest oil importer in the world. Malaysia supplies them with over a million barrels a day of oil. China bought 54% more crude from Malaysia in 2023 than the year before. This is critical because it's yet another strike on the petrodollar system. We know China wants to trade in local currencies. Anwar also wants to de-dollarize. We can be sure a big part of these volumes are transacted outside of the US dollar. And this is essential for the new BRICS financial system. Part of it, of course, is to conduct bilateral trade in national currencies, in this case, the ringgit and the Chinese yuan. As more oil gets priced outside of the dollar, BRICS as a whole can secure their economies better. BRICS countries have both the supply and demand of oil to be self-sufficient. Even if there's a global shortage of USD, they can still get energy using bilateral currencies, and that is the biggest limiter to economic growth, which is now gone. In terms of geography, Malaysia sits at the vital Strait of Malacca, and this is very important for China, BRICS, and whole of Asia, the whole of the world actually. This choke point controls 24% of global seaborne trade. Almost half of the world's crude oil transits through here. The more countries in Southeast Asia that joins BRICS, the less likely this choke point will fall under the influence of the US. For China, this is really existential. The majority of their energy imports comes from the Middle East, and all these cargoes from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, they have to pass by the Strait of Malacca to reach their refineries. Having Malaysia in the bloc is a big strategic win, especially for Beijing's energy security. Malaysia is committed to free and independent trade. In an interview, Anwar confirmed this sentiment. We can no longer accept the scenario where the West wants to control the discourse, because the fact is they are not colonial powers anymore, and independent countries should be free to express themselves. And if we tie everything together, it's really easy to see the new financial system accelerating ahead. Malaysia adds an oil producer to the bloc and a foothold for China to further de-dollarize Asia. Even the IMF admits global fragmentation is happening.
I think everybody agrees that going down the slippery slope of fragmentation is going to clearly reduce efficiency, which is going to put pressure on inflation and reduce potential growth for many countries in the world. Of course, everybody wants to match that with the fact that we've had the pandemic and the war, and countries need to build resilience to these kinds of shocks and to ensure that they have more secure supply chains and they have economic security and national security. Now, in terms of economic security, it's clear that what countries need to do is to diversify. So yes, maybe we don't have the hyper-efficient sourcing that we used to have before, but I think clearly we need diversification just so that we don't end up with the kinds of situations we have in the past.
Countries in Southeast Asia joining BRICS is really a pivotal moment. Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia moving eastwards is a game changer. It's really crazy how Western media is ignoring this development. They still believe BRICS is a joke and the current system is untouchable, but their belief is now being questioned. When the US goes to other countries, they only talk about countering China. But when China goes abroad, they talk about making money together, about economic growth, very different philosophies. As it stands, trade between Malaysia and China is de-dollarizing fast. In 2009, only 1.2% of settlements were done in bilateral currencies. Today, it has risen to over 24%. This number will continue to rise, especially if Malaysia gets into BRICS. And the linchpin of this will be China's RMB swap lines. Malaysia and China, for example, have a long-standing swap line, and this allows Kuala Lumpur, KL, to access 180 billion Chinese yuan, which is worth around $25 billion. If the US dollar suddenly strengthens, Malaysia can tap this emergency line to access Chinese currency for their imports, and this helps to prevent a devaluation of their national currency. It also helps Malaysia keep interest rates as low as possible, which is necessary for faster economic growth. Countries around the world, they are waking up. They don't want to be hostage to the dollar system. There's the threat of sanctions, confiscations, and of course, US monetary policy. BRICS is a very good avenue to hedge against that. Every country has their reasons to join BRICS, and the biggest one by far is to ensure stable economic growth. This chart alone tells us why de-dollarization won't end. It also tells us why more countries will continue to join BRICS. It's all in the data. A strong dollar is harmful to emerging market economies. When the dollar appreciates, advanced economies suffer for around 9 months. That is the line in blue. But for emerging markets, the red line, the effects are much more severe. They experience an average GDP collapse of at least 2%, and this pain could last for up to 12 quarters or 3 long years. Even if US sanctions stop, the shift away to local currencies won't. The US government, they have lost control of spending. The world will continue to see higher inflation and more interest rate shocks down the road. Malaysia or Thailand joining BRICS really shouldn't be a surprise. I don't think it's about choosing sides, it's more about growing their economy and ensuring economic survival. And it's really obvious the bargain China is selling is very attractive. But let me know what you think. Will Malaysia join BRICS, and which country is next to apply? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.